this effort's really all about right now.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with a question here, Doctor. Straightforward question. Did you have the opportunity to develop a personal relationship with Neil Armstrong? And whether or not you did or not, do you have some sense of why this gentleman, who at one time was the most famous human being in the world, why he has chosen such a reclusive, very private reclusive life since, of course, his extraordinary walk?
Well, I did. We all had at least a reasonable personal relationship with Neil. He was a buddy, he was a colleague, but he is also a very reclusive man. And the story is, and I don't know whether it's really true, but in the post-flight travels that he and Buzz did, and we all did our post-flight travels, and they had a little bit more of it, being the first team to go out than some of the others of us. But there is a story that in a large crowd in India, he was speaking to several thousands of people in an open-air stadium, and at the end of it, there was a surge forward of the crowd toward him, and it shook him up so badly he's been reticent ever since. And I don't know whether that's a complete story or not, but Neil is a rather private, quiet guy, and has chosen not to work in the public sector, or rather in the visible sector of this work as much as some of the rest of us. But maybe he has good reason to. He'd be so overwhelmed by it that it wasn't comfortable for him. But he has been quite quiet about it.
Do you ever have any regrets that maybe you didn't take Neil's course?
No, but I do a pretty good job. I live a quiet, very quiet life when I'm home. And I don't involve myself too much in local activities, simply because I need my privacy and I need my space when I go home from these travels.
Next question.
Thank you, Steve. Dr. Mitchell, sir, your outstanding career achievements serve as such a wonderful example of the tremendous accomplishments of our American citizens and outstanding nation. Do you think it appropriate at this time, sir, that our nation take the lead in open, transparent discussion and full exploration of the tremendous opportunities presented by the extraterrestrial presence? Thank you.
The answer is absolutely yes, and that's why we're here. It's to help open this up, and hopefully that we will be more successful in doing that here in the next decade than we have been in the past decade. It's, in my opinion, vital that we begin to take our position, our place, and let's call it a community of planets, just like we would a small community on this earth when we're isolated without transportation, on foot, and all that. Then when we developed locomotion and vehicles to get around, we started forming in communities. But we've got the same thing on a larger scale of the planet right now. And that, to me, is the challenge of the 21st century, is how do we actualize this and make it work? Because as a community, we can learn from others, and we can learn to survive as a species. But we do have a problem with survival for this species. Go ahead, sir.
First of all, Dr. Mitchell, thank you for your service to our nation and our military. I want you to know you're a true hero of mine. My grandfather and my dad both fought in 2 world wars, and I didn't have to, largely because of the service of people like you. And I think on behalf of everyone here, I want to express our gratitude for that.
Thank you. I'm sure many of us in this room have served our time in the military.
Secondly, I think you may be the last living witness to one of the greatest historical events on the planet. I think you were certainly the youngest at the time. If I remember from your biography, you by chance saw the Trinity test site explosion. Is that correct?
You mean at White Sands?
Yeah. Were you out delivering papers that morning? Is that what I remember?
Was right. At that period of time, of course, that was about this, just a little before the so-called Roswell incident. But we could see from the flight. I lived in Artesia, which was right down the road from Roswell. And we were alerted. We did see the flash, the atomic flash across the mountains to the west of us, about 150 100%. That's right across the mountain. And I was understood later that that's exactly what the flash was that we're talking about, because the early tests were there. And I have a sneaky suspicion, and it's not so sneaky, the suspicion that the whole ET interest and the reason for the Roswell crash, we have quite a bit of evidence since that time that the UFO phenomenon is prevalent around nuclear sites and nuclear tests. And since Roswell was the first strategic weapon, strategic aviation squadron carrying nuclear weapons, and White Sand was right across the mountains from us, I suspect, at least the lore would have it, that that was a part of the interest of the alien investigation.
I think you must have been one of the youngest witnesses to that test site, first nuclear explosion.
Well, the whole community there was, yeah.
So they alerted you that something was going to happen that morning? They alerted the community that something would be happening?
I can't remember now, it's been so long. I just happen to know that I happened to be up. Maybe I was going to the ranch with my father very early in the morning when that happened. I just can't recall all of that.
Thank you.
Dr. Mitchell, I just noticed this gentleman from the back here. Any chance that you would commit to the audience today that if in fact you have a chance to go back into space, that you would wear an X-Conference t-shirt?
Well, I'll have to think about that. I don't know that adequate protection from the rigors of space.
Dr. Mitchell had several questions. Firstly, the 1997 incident you mentioned concerning an admiral that was denied access to Roswell-related information projects. Do you have any knowledge of who it was that denied him access and whether it's true that it was actually a defense or lawyers or attorneys for a defense contract?
From Admiral Wilson, no, I do not know who that was.
Second question, have you ever had any information passed on to you by any witness concerning photos of President Eisenhower meeting with extraterrestrials or any treaty signed?
I'm sorry, start that one again.
Have you been ever given any information by any witness concerning photos of President Eisenhower meeting with extraterrestrials and of any treaty signed by the US with extraterrestrials?
I have heard that in the lore. I have no hard evidence, nor have I seen any documentation, but I have heard it at this conference and through some of the other contacts, perhaps yourself, I don't know.
And finally, with the Roswell crash, did you ever get any information that what may have brought down the UFO was a new type of radar that was designed for tracking captured V-2 rockets from White Sands?
No, I have not heard that. I don't think that is true because the area of the crash was would not been, I don't believe, amenable to that phenomenon, being isolated as it was northwest of Roswell, and quite a ways from the White Sands. And so I can't really speak to that with authority, but it doesn't seem reasonable to me.
I would first like to say it's an honor to be able to ask you questions and everything.
Okay.
Because it's such an honor, or it is such an honor because of all of your experience that you've had. And because of all of your experience, I wonder how you view President Barack Obama and if you feel that he's the right person right now to